Alright guys, welcome to Mrs. Dronda's Crash Course. In each of these videos, we're going to go over one quick topic that you'll need to know for your midterm. My best advice to you guys on how to use these videos is to look at a question, pause the video, try it on your own, and then watch it for an explanation, because otherwise you're going to wind up just watching me do it and feeling maybe a little overly confident. So as I work through these, pause the video, use them to interact, and as always, if you guys have questions, send them my way. In this video, we're going to talk about properties of exponents. So these are your basic properties that you're going to need to know. And remember, we had dances for these. So when we talk about multiplying like bases, adding your exponents, dividing like bases, subtracting your exponents, power to a power, multiply your exponents, right? Now, negative exponents, remember those are like our dubstep exponents. They drop the base. So negative exponents will flip your base. And any number to the 0 power except 0 is 1. So this is a summary of your properties. And we're going to go through some examples. So the best advice I can give you guys here is to pause the video, try these 6 questions on your own, hit play to check yourself for if you get stuck. So let's take a look at these. So the first one, when I look at this, those are non-zero as far as I know. Anything to the 0 is just 1. So nothing to fool you there. You've got those to the 0. The next one I'm looking at, I'm saying, okay, well, order of operations. Let's start with the parentheses, maybe go to the exponents. Within the parentheses, there's nothing I can do. So there's 2 different ways you could go about this. You could say, oh, that's a negative exponent. So if that whole expression is in the denominator, it should flip up to the numerator. So you could take this and do that, move it to the numerator, and then the cubed would go up with it. So that's one way. If you did it that way, you then say, okay, 2 is to the first. So this would be 2 to the third, y to the 6th, z to the third, because that's also to the first. And then 2 to the third is just 8. Now, if you didn't think of that, just flipping it, what you could say is, okay, well, I'm going to raise each of those to the negative third. So it would be 1 over 2 to the negative third, y to the negative 6th, z to the negative third, right? Power to a power, multiply. And then since each of those exponents are negative, you're going to flip them all up to the numerator. So again, you'd wind up with 2 to the third, y to the 6th, z to the third, because when they flip to the numerator, they become positive. And that would give you the same thing we got over there. So there's a lot of different ways to do these, but they're going to lead you to the same answer. All right, next one. Here, again, you could start by saying, okay, these are all to the first, and then raising everything to the third. That would work. But I would say let's go with our order of operations, and let's say, well, in the parentheses, what can I do? So 4 divided by 2 is just 2, and that's x to the first. And when I divide like bases, I subtract the exponents, so x to the negative 4th, and that's still all being raised to the third. Now 2 is to the first, so this would be 2 to the third, x to the negative 12th. And remember, when you have a negative exponent, it will flip either to the numerator or to the denominator. So this one will flip to the denominator. So that is 8x to the 12th. Now let's say you'd done it the other way, right? Let's say you saw the other way. So then you'd have 4 to the third, x to the third, over 2 to the third, x to the 15th. And you do the same thing. 4 to the third is 64, divided by 2 to the third is 8. So that's 8, right? X to the third, x to the 15th is x to the negative 12th, and that leads you right back to that answer. Okay, let's get a little harder. So here I'm doing multiplication. So with the numbers, I'm just going to multiply. So that's negative 10. With your exponents, remember when you multiply, add the exponents, right? So I'm going to have x to the 0, y to the 10th. X to the 0 is 1. Anything to the 0 is 1. So this is negative 10, y to the 10th. And that's it. All right, and then the last one here before we talk about the one that we did on our challenge in class is this one, and let's raise each of these to their powers. So within there and within there, there's nothing I can do. So parentheses, nothing. So let's go to exponents. I'm going to throw a 1 on each of those. And so I've got negative z to the second and then y to the negative 6th. And the reason I kept the negative z in parentheses was the negative is with the z, right? They're grouped together. And then I would have 4 to the negative 2nd, z to the negative 12th, y to the negative 18th. Now I'm multiplying, right? So there's no other numbers, so I'm just going to leave 4 to the negative 2nd. Then I've got z squared and z to the negative 12th. Now I know that negative there is something we got to think about, but a negative times a negative is positive. So that just really winds up being z squared. So this is z to the negative 10th. And then I have y to the negative 6th and y to the negative 18th. So that gives me y to the negative 24th. Now each of those are negative. So I'm going to flip all of them to the denominator. So this would be 1 over 4 squared is 16, z to the 10th, y to the 24th. Okay, last one was the one from our challenging class. Again, this is something hopefully that you've paused the video and tried on your own, but we're going to go through this answer. So I'm going to start PEMDAS in my parentheses. The numerator, there's nothing I can do to, but the denominator I can simplify by knowing that each of these are to the first, and I'm squaring it. So 3 squared is 9, x squared, y squared, and that is all to the negative 3rd. Now, keep going in your parentheses. When you divide like bases, you can subtract your exponents. So I'm going to remind myself that those each have an exponent of 1. 18 divided by 9 is 2. 1 minus 2 is negative 1. 1 minus 2 is negative 1. And that's still all to the negative 3rd. And lastly, I'm going to wind up with 2 to the negative 3rd, x to the positive 3rd, y to the positive 3rd. So remember, that's 2 to the first. You could put 2 to the negative 3rd in your calculator, but I'm just going to remember that negative exponents flip to the denominator. So x cubed, y cubed will still be on the top over 2 cubed, which is 8. So that is your crash course on laws of exponents. If you still have questions or if you need more practice, send me a message and happy studying.